The Helios Foundation released a new report that shows that almost a third of elementary and junior high school students are missing at least 10% of the school year, and that, says Helios, is too high for Arizona to reach its education goals. And for more on this, we welcome Paul Peralt. He's the Senior Vice President of Community Impact and Learning at Helios. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, the report is called Still Missing Too Much School, Focus on Grades 1 through 8. Why are kids still missing too much school?
And that's what we're trying to figure out, really. You know, we're at a point right now that we're 5 years out when the pandemic started. We still see about a third of kids missing 18 or more days of school, which is how we define chronic absenteeism in the state of Arizona.
2 times as high as pre-pandemic levels? Is that what I'm reading here?
It is 2 times as high as pre-pandemic. So prior to 2020, we were anywhere from 12 to 14%. Pandemic, it kind of spiked in the 30th percentile, and then we're down in the 20s now, but still taking too much time to get back to where we were before that.
How much is the pandemic still a factor?
I think the pandemic is still a factor. You know, number one, students got out of the habit of going to school as part of it. 2, you know, people were given different opportunities to look at school. And 3, you know, we're still seeing some of the same issues that were happening during the pandemic. For example, students not having enough transportation, or students having to help out in their families be some of the issues of why students are missing school.
Yeah, I want to get to that in a second here, but I mean, I'm of the age where when you weren't going to school, you were out doing something. You were out probably doing no good, but you weren't home, and your parents didn't know they didn't know where you were. They thought you were at school. Has that changed?
I think what's changed is we've got in the habit of students not being in school and having opportunities to fix that with online modules or online school. And sometimes it's just a lack of having that knowledge. We're all busy today. So that's why one of the things that we're really looking forward to is having parents and families get earlier information. You know, when your kid misses 3 or 4 days of school, you know, getting that information to parents so that they understand what's happening. Because sometimes that's a surprise, even though they might know those absences happened.
Are the kids that are staying home for a variety of reasons and not going, are they still getting some kind of education? Are they still doing something?
Well, a number of kids are still finishing school, you know, and we really looked just to make sure that we're highlighting. This report looked at 1st grade through 8th grade,
right? And
so still going to school, but you know, missing a lot of curriculum work. And so one of the things that we really identified is that they're struggling. Those kids that miss a lot of school in math, they're missing a lot of. They're struggling in English language arts. And recently, we saw the NAEP results come out. We saw NAEP drop, and so you know, we are seeing these correlations of a lot of students missing school and what's happening academically with students.
I was going to ask about the impact of academic performance, and you just stated it. I mean, it's pretty bold, isn't it?
It is pretty bold. And, you know, we're, again, back being 5 years out of the pandemic, we look at what happened 2 years ago with NAEP. We saw, you know, a 6-point drop in some of the subjects. Those are significantly, or statistical significant differences and drops that we just can't afford in the state of Arizona.
Okay, so you're looking at grades 1 through 8, the impact on high school, the impact on post-secondary learning. What are you seeing?
Well, and that's the where we're kind of flowing now. If you think about what was happening, you know, 5 years ago when we saw that it really starting to spike, you know, many of those students are getting to the point where they just got out of high school or just getting into college. And so what we've saw there is our trends in chronic absenteeism that are happening in the early grades, or what we call K through 8, they continue to grow in high school. And so we see more kids that are disengaged or dropping out, not graduating. We also saw graduation rates go down. And ultimately, that's going to have an impact if we don't have more intervention supports to get kids ready for their career or college. And we want them to be ready for both. And that's why it's so important to be thinking about this.
It's also important, I would imagine, for the kids who aren't missing so much school. This is a school culture, just what goes on at the school. That has to be affected as well when you have so many kids not showing up.
Well, school culture, you know, having friends that are not there or classmates, but think about the teachers as well. You know, a teacher that has multiple or a third of their class missing school, they have to adjust assignments, adjust curriculum, adjust all kinds of things to intervene for those students at different times. And so that really does impact, the teacher's ability to give strong instruction and the classroom around.
Yeah. Earlier you mentioned unreliable transportation and family responsibilities and these sorts of things. How much of a factor are those?
You know, can't really measure that with a percentage, but it's those are some of the examples that we're starting to see. And that's where we are really at a point right now is okay, we understand this is a problem. It continued to be a problem over the last 5 years. Now working in partnership with, for example, we work with Read On and the Chronic Absenteeism Task Force that they put together. We're trying to identify those root cause solutions. Why is this happening? We know it's not just one single reason across, but what are the steps that we can take to improve those outcomes?
How does Arizona rank compared to other states in this kind of a study?
Currently, when we're looking at 2022 and 2023, we have the 15th. We're ranked 15th in chronic absenteeism. So
Yeah.
lots of chronic absenteeism in the state of.
All right, and systemic solutions, that's the idea? That's what you're looking for here?
We're looking for systemic solutions, working in partnerships. One of the things that we really would say is we have to use the data first. So making sure that schools are equipped to look at the data, reach out to parents, continue to build those strong relationships, because that's going to be a key factor to getting those students back in school.
All right, Paul Peralt, Helios, good information. Not the best of news, but good information and good to work on. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.